football because we've got news. Mel's got a new mock draft, and it hits ESPN.com today. In his latest mock draft, post-combine, we've got some shuffling, and the biggest shuffle is that Jeremiah Love is now going in the top 5 and goes number 4 to the Tennessee Titans. Not pictured is Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson is going 16th to the Jets with their second first-round pick. That would be the pick they acquired in the Sauce Gardner deal. We bring in our esteemed colleague, the legend himself, the man who built this entire draft world, Mr. Mel Kiper Jr. Welcome to Get Up, my friend.
Good to be with you guys.
It's great to see you here, and you have Mendoza still at number 1. That hasn't changed. We're now post-combine, post-first wave of free agency. The vibe on Mendoza is what?
Franchise quarterback, and for the Raiders be happy, you're fortunate to have that number 1 pick in a year where you have a Fernando Mendoza coming out. He nailed the process from the start to the finish. He was on fire. The biggest games down the stretch, 9 touchdowns, 1 pick in the most important games. Cut down that sack total dramatically from what it was at Cal to what it was at Indiana. You saw the ability to beat a defense with his legs. You saw the toughness. When he got hit in that Ohio State Big Ten game. You think about coming back from that. Think about accuracy to all levels. Think about cracking the code. He did it every week throughout the season. Even when he had rough moments, he responded with a drive late. To me, Fernando Mendoza showed up big. There was no question he was the number 1 quarterback in this draft. And for next year to say, hey, there's going to be better quarterbacks, good luck on that, because they got to get to Mendoza's level. They're not there yet. None of those guys for next year are where Mendoza is right now.
Interesting. Dan Orlovsky, you've been pretty vocal saying, hey, good, but let's slow down on putting him in the conversation of one of the all-time greats. You've had a chance to break down the tape. Yeah. Take us through some things you think Mendoza might have to improve upon in the NFL.
Yeah, there's not a lot of evidence of him down the field getting through a progression 1 to 2 to 3. His greatest superpower is he avoids negative play. So a lot of times it's like number 1 down, okay? So there's not a ton of evidence of that. This is an example against Oregon, okay? You get 2 tight ends at the bottom of the screen. They're going to take a shot here, Indiana offensively. Little ball fake, half roll. And they're going to try to watch the receiver down the middle field on a big post. It's not there. Now, Mendoza's staring at the bottom of the screen. That's good, but there's an in route at the top. That is really like the second or third part of the progression. The pocket is clean. I want to see him get to that. He immediately gets the check down. Risk first. You're not going to be great in the NFL kind of living like that. I think the second thing is there's a lot of examples of his eyes dropping looking at the rush. Now, times he makes plays out of it against Ohio State Big Ten championship game. 1, 2, 3, and watch the middle of the screen. You're going to see a shallow cross and an in route. Those are wide open. But right now, he goes into this I'm running away mode. Just shuffle, and you can get a receiver down the field. But to his credit, he turns this into a plus play, runs around, makes a play, dumps it off for a conversion. How likely or consistent is that going to be in the NFL? And so I think that there's plenty of clips on tape where you sit there and go, why didn't you get to that in route? Or why didn't you cut that seam loose? And it's a good play because it's not a negative play. He'll check it down or run around. Or, he feels a rush, and instead of like moving in the pocket, his eyes will drop, look, and then all of a sudden he runs around and he makes a play. How is that going to translate over into the NFL?
I would add this. If you're watching, you're like, Dan's not hating on.
Not in the least bit.
But it's also very easy just to say, he's great. It's also good to kind of identify what he needs to improve upon. And Dan Graziano, I bring you in. Everyone's talking about quarterbacks at the top of the draft. Mendoza, it feels like is the number 1 pick, but it doesn't feel like this is this Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence type candidate.
I mean, that's why you hire a head coach like Clint Kubiak, because you feel like he can build off of what he showed in college. This is not the finished product. This is not what they want him to look like 5 years from now. So you draft him because you're picking number 1. You need a quarterback. You draft him because you feel like he has the right stuff inside of him. Is he a winner? Is he a leader? Does he have the drive to improve on the things that he needs to improve on? The Raiders have. We assume they're going to take him. I have answered all those questions in the affirmative. So you build out that you work with his feet. Like Clint Kubiak has shown an ability to get the most out of his quarterbacks, and I think that's part of the reason he has the job with the Raiders.
Yeah, I think big jump for Fernando really in the NFL level is he's a very good decision maker. He is. Again, that's his greatest strength is he makes great decisions. But a lot of the decisions, at least in the offense that he ran to Indiana, were 1 to down. one to check down. So you should be pretty good at that because you're not thinking of a lot of information. Clint Kubiak's offense is going to force him to make a lot of different, the deep post to the crossing route to the shallow. So how can he advance getting through those progressions on the down the field concepts rather than deep to short?
I think for context, this isn't a Caleb Williams on film where you're seeing some freakish throw, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. You are not watching jaw-dropping physical talent. No.
And that's, so this is why you look at, Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders. I think the reason you look at this is because they need the quarterback. They absolutely have to have one. He's got the hype coming in. They would feel foolish if they didn't. But they're telling everyone who will listen that they don't want to play him right away.
Sure.
And I think that's a big part of this, right? You have to build up from the background throughout training camp. Now, it doesn't always work, but they believe that they'll get something more out of him at the beginning.
I would assume a Joe Flacco or a Kirk Cousins or somebody else is likely going to be. We'll see what happens. All right, Mel.
Yeah.
You also have Ty Simpson going in the first round, and this is very interesting, to the Jets with their second first-round pick at 16 overall. Tell us why the Jets and why not he would slip or go even further earlier.
Well, the Rams at 13, you think, Peter? Guys, you think about maybe Arizona. Everybody says getting back into the first round late. But for Ty Simpson, the Jets, they pick early, obviously. David Bailey could be the guy. They have 2 second-round picks, right? All those picks next year. But Ty Simpson, if Frank Reich, offensive coordinator, loves Ty Simpson, why not? He wants to be a Jet. You have Geno Smith there. He'll be 36 in October. Ty Simpson only had 15 starts. It's a great situation where you can sit, watch, and learn for a year with the New York Jets. And who says they're going to have a chance to get Arch or Dante next year? And who says Arch will even want to be a Jet? So get the guy. If you love Ty Simpson, you get him at 16. Be happy. Bring him in and let him sit behind Geno Smith for a year.
Worth noting, the Jets have not only 2 first-round picks this year, they have 3 next. Means it's time for some overreactions with Graz. All right, Dan, starting things off. A.J. Brown and Max Crosby will both be on new teams in 2026. Overreaction or not?
It's not an overreaction. I think there's probably a tendency for people to say, oh, they didn't get moved last week when all the activity happened. But there's a whole offseason to go. It benefits the Eagles to wait till after June 1st to trade A.J. Brown if they're going to do it. Benefits them salary cap-wise. Max Crosby's got to get healthy. I think these are 2 trades that get revisited as the offseason goes along, and I don't think it's out of the question at all that one or both of them is on a different team in 2026.
Just to reiterate, it is not set in stone that Max Crosby will be on the Raiders week 1.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think there's still, if you get that kind of offer again or something close to it, you have to think about it because you were already making your plan without him. So, if you had to guess one way or the other, right now it feels like he probably will be. But between now and the trade deadline, a lot can happen.
Okay, number 2. The Pittsburgh Steelers will have their first losing season since 2003. Overreaction or not?
It's not an overreaction. Look, this is a team that's been 10-7 the last 3 years. They're flirting with 500 every single year. There's a chance that Mike Tomlin was the one sort of holding it together and getting the most out of this roster. They haven't done anything yet at quarterback. We think they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Is that going to be the right solution in his age 42 season? I think there's a lot of questions about this roster, and I don't think we should assume just because they're the Steelers that they'll finish over 500.
All right, our last one. This one's interesting. J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. are both done as starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Is that an overreaction?
Of course it's an overreaction. These guys are 2 years into their careers. Neither one of them has started 15 games in the league yet. Look, you bring in Tua Tagovailoa in Atlanta. There's a chance that Penix isn't ready to start the season. You bring in Kyler Murray in Minnesota because you want to push J.J. McCarthy. I don't think I think it's a complete overreaction to assume that these guys' teams are done with them, and certainly that they're done as starters in the NFL way too early.
All right, we're going to bring in Dan Orlovsky and Mel Kiper Jr. for this one and have a bigger conversation. Dano, look at the Atlanta quarterback situation. You got Penix going into his 3rd year, coming off an injury. You have Tua signing up, looking for a second chapter of his career. What do you make of the situation in Atlanta?
Fully expect Tua to be the starting quarterback week 1 because of the reality of Michael Penix's health. Tua, you get half a season. Reality, both get half a year. Michael Penix and Tua, you got half a year to prove to us that you guys can still play. Now, that can be true while also saying from 2022 to 2024, Tua is a top 10 quarterback. And I know it was in a very specific system, Mike McDaniel, and it was custom tailor-made for Tua. But he was a highly performing quarterback in that situation. He's performed significantly greater than Michael Penix has up until this point in their career, and I know different bodies of work. But if I'm Atlanta and I'm Matt Ryan and Kevin Stefanski, president and head coach, you get half a year. And if you prove to us that you can play, we'll address it. But you get half a year, or we're moving on to the 2027.
Terry Fontenot drafted Michael Penix. Raheem Morris was the coach. Neither one of those guys are there anymore. What do you make of the Michael Penix situation in Atlanta?
Exactly what Dano said. Durability concern with Penix Jr. Tua was a concern coming out of Alabama as well. But for this offense, he's ideally suited. In that dome, obviously, you think about processing and accuracy. Tua, this is, to me, is his opportunity to be, hey, I'm the guy here. I'm the guy who can move us forward. Same thing with Kyler. I think Kyler's the guy in Minnesota, not J.J. right now. Can J.J. reemerge down the road? Sure he can. But Tyler Murray was brought in, make no mistake about it, to be the guy. Same thing for Tua in Atlanta.
Dan Graziano, I hate to say it's a man without an army, but I prefaced it with new offensive coordinator, new head coach, new general manager, new president. Does it feel like Michael Penix Jr., like they're moving on from him?
I could see the argument, but it's the same owner. And this is an owner that invested a lot of money in Kirk Cousins and the 8th pick in the draft on Michael Penix in the same offseason. I think there's a sense in Atlanta that the owner of the team